"Please don't beat me, I'm already shattered," said the native woman. What he did next stunned her. She was born in a small, quiet village where life was never easy, but people still found ways to smile. The woman's name was Ayana. From the time she could remember, she had learned one hard lesson again and again. Survival came before dreams. Her people lived close to the land, respecting nature and tradition, yet the world outside their village did not always show the same respect to them. Ayana grew up watching her mother work from morning till night. Her hands were always tired, her back always bent, but her spirit tried to stay strong. Her father had passed away when Ayana was still very young, leaving behind silence and unanswered questions. After that, life became heavier. Food was sometimes scarce, and hope felt like something meant for other people, not for them. As a child, Ayana was gentle and curious. She liked listening to elders tell stories about old times when honor and kindness mattered more than power. Those stories stayed in her heart, even when reality began to look very different. As she grew older, she learned that not everyone saw her as a human first. Many saw her background before they saw her face. Some judged her without knowing her name. Over time, those looks and whispers slowly shaped her fears. When her mother became ill, Ayana had to step into adulthood too soon. She left school to work small jobs, helping where she could. She cleaned houses, carried water, and sold handmade items in nearby towns. Each day brought new challenges. Some people were kind, but many were not. Words were spoken that made her feel small. Promises were made and broken. With each passing year, her trust in the world grew weaker. There were moments when she wanted to give up, but responsibility kept her moving. She believed that if she stayed quiet and did her work, trouble might pass her by. That belief was tested many times. Life taught her that silence did not always protect a person. Still, she endured because endurance was all she knew. The day her life took a sharp turn began like any other. The sky was pale and the air felt heavy. Ayana had traveled far from her village to complete a task that could help her family. She told herself to stay calm, to keep her head down, and to return home before nightfall. But deep inside, a sense of unease followed her, like a shadow she could not escape. As she moved through unfamiliar streets, she felt the weight of invisible eyes. Every step reminded her of past encounters that had ended in fear or disappointment. Her heart beat faster, not because something had happened yet, but because she had learned to expect the worst. Experience had trained her to prepare for pain before it arrived. Then she saw him. He stood out not because of his size or voice, but because of the authority he carried so easily. His presence made the air feel tighter. Ayana froze for a moment, unsure whether to turn back or move forward. Her mind raced through memories she wished she could forget. Encounters where power was used carelessly. Moments when her voice had not mattered. She lowered her eyes, hoping to pass unnoticed, but fate had other plans. As their paths crossed, something in his posture made her chest tighten. It was not what he said or did yet, it was what she imagined he might do. Fear does that. It fills the empty spaces with memories and assumptions. Her breath became shallow, and her hands trembled despite her effort to stay calm. She tried to speak, but her voice felt trapped inside her. All the strength she had built over years seemed to disappear in seconds. In her mind, she was no longer the grown woman who had survived hardship. She was the scared girl again, standing alone, hoping not to be noticed. Her past rushed back in fragments, harsh tones, cold expressions, moments where she felt powerless. Those experiences had shattered something inside her. Piece by piece, she had learned to expect no mercy, only endurance. That belief pressed down on her like a weight she could not lift. When she finally looked up, her eyes met his for just a moment. That was enough. Her defenses broke. The fear she had carried for years poured out all at once. Words escaped her lips before she could stop them. Words shaped by pain and exhaustion. "Please, don't beat me. I'm already shattered." The sentence came out softly, almost like a whisper. It was not just a plea for safety in that moment. It was a summary of her entire life. Every loss, every insult, every quiet tear was hidden inside those words. She was not asking for kindness anymore. She was begging for the pain not to grow. As soon as she spoke, shame washed over her. She hated that she had begged. She hated that fear had taken her voice and twisted it into desperation. Her shoulders slumped, and she waited, bracing herself for what she believed would come next. Her body had learned how to prepare for hurt even before it happened. Time seemed to slow. Each second felt heavier than the last. Her thoughts spun wildly. Would this moment become another memory she would try to bury? Would this be another reason she stopped believing in people? She stared at the ground, unable to watch his reaction. In her world, power often meant cruelty, and silence usually came before it. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. She felt exposed, small, and deeply tired, not just tired in her body, but tired in her soul. What hurt the most was not the fear itself, but the fact that fear felt normal to her. It felt expected. She wondered when she had stopped believing that she deserved better. When had survival replaced dignity? She thought of her village, of her mother waiting for her return. She wondered if she would make it back before nightfall. She wondered if she would once again have to pretend that everything was fine, that nothing had shaken her. In that fragile moment, Ayanna stood at the edge of everything she knew. Her past had taught her one story, that strength meant enduring pain in silence. But standing there, already broken and exposed, she did not know that her story was about to face a moment that would challenge everything she believed about people, power, and herself. And as she waited for his response, unaware of what choice he would make, her life hung quietly between fear and the possibility of something she had almost forgotten existed: hope. The moment her words left her mouth, the air between them felt heavy and still. Ayanna kept her eyes lowered, her whole body tense, as if she were waiting for a storm she had seen too many times before. Her hands were clenched tightly, nails pressing into her skin, grounding herself in the only way she knew. She did not cry. Tears had long stopped being useful. Instead, she stood frozen, bracing for a reaction she believed was unavoidable. The man heard her clearly. Her voice was soft, almost broken, but the meaning behind it was powerful. It was not the kind of sentence someone forgets easily. It carried fear that had been growing for years, fear shaped by repeated disappointment and loss. For a brief second, he did not move. He had expected resistance, excuses, or silence. He had not expected a plea that sounded so tired, so final. He looked at her more carefully now, not just at her clothes or her posture, but at her face. He noticed the way her shoulders curved inward, as if she were trying to make herself smaller. He saw the faint marks of exhaustion under her eyes, the kind that sleep alone could not fix. This was not someone trying to cause trouble. This was someone who had been carrying too much for too long. Ayanna felt the pause stretch on, and every second made her chest tighten more. Silence had often been the warning sign in her past. It usually meant someone was deciding how far they could go. Her thoughts raced ahead of her, imagining outcomes she hoped she was wrong about. She reminded herself to stay quiet. Staying quiet had sometimes helped before. Around them, life continued as if nothing unusual was happening. People walked by, talking, laughing, focused on their own paths. No one noticed the silent struggle unfolding in that small space. To the world, it was just another ordinary moment. To Ayanna, it felt like her entire future was standing still. The man shifted his weight slightly. The movement made her flinch, though she tried to hide it. That small reaction did not escape his notice. It told him more than her words ever could. He realized then that her fear was not about him alone. It was about what others had done before him. He was standing in a place shaped by her past, whether he liked it or not. He cleared his throat, unsure how to speak without making things worse. Authority had taught him to give commands, not comfort. He was used to being obeyed, not questioned. Yet here was someone who did not look at him with defiance, but with deep fear. It unsettled him in a way he did not expect. Ayanna waited. Her heart felt like it was beating too fast for her body. She wondered if she should apologize, though she did not know what she would be apologizing for. Existing, maybe. Taking up space. Being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Those thoughts came easily to her, shaped by years of being made to feel like a burden. Finally, the man spoke. His voice was calmer than she expected, but she did not lift her head yet. Words had misled her before. Calm tones had sometimes hidden harsh intentions. She listened carefully, searching for danger between each sound. He asked her a simple question. Nothing sharp. Nothing accusing. Just a question meant to understand why she was there. The simplicity of it confused her. For a moment she wondered if she had heard him correctly. People rarely asked her questions like that. They usually assumed they already knew the answers. Her voice shook as she replied. She kept her words short, careful not to say too much. She explained her reason for being there, her task, her need to return home soon. As she spoke, she felt exposed, as if every word revealed another weakness. She expected interruption, disbelief, or anger. None came. The man listened without cutting her off. That alone felt strange. Ayana had learned to expect impatience, especially from those who held power. She spoke faster, trying to get everything out before she lost the chance. When she finished, she fell silent again, unsure if she had said the wrong thing. He studied her quietly. Not in a way that felt judging, but thoughtful. He was beginning to understand that the situation in front of him was not what he had first assumed. He thought about how easily fear can grow when people feel unseen and unheard. He thought about how many times he himself had moved through the world without considering the weight others carried. Ayana felt caught between hope and dread. The fact that he had not reacted harshly gave her a small spark of relief, but she did not trust it yet. Hope had hurt her before. It had made the fall harder when things went wrong. She told herself not to expect kindness. Expecting nothing had become her way of surviving. The man noticed her hesitation, the way she kept her eyes down even as she answered. He realized that trust, if it existed at all, was fragile here. He chose his next words carefully. He explained that he was not there to harm her. He said it plainly, without drama. Just a simple statement. Those words hit her harder than anything else that day. Not because they were loud or dramatic, but because they were unexpected. Her mind struggled to accept them. She had heard promises before, only to watch them break. Still, something about the way he spoke made her pause. She slowly lifted her gaze, just enough to look at his face again. She searched for signs of deception, for the familiar hardness she had learned to recognize. What she saw instead was uncertainty. Not weakness, but awareness. It confused her even more. Her body did not relax immediately. Years of fear do not disappear in a moment, but something inside her shifted slightly, like a tight knot loosening just a little. She realized she was breathing deeper than before. The ground under her feet felt steadier. The man asked if she was safe, if she had someone waiting for her. These were questions no one had asked her in a long time. They made her throat tighten. She nodded and answered, her voice steadier now, though still cautious. Each question felt like a small step away from the edge she had been standing on. As they spoke, Ayana began to notice details she had missed earlier. His hands were relaxed, not clenched. His stance was open, not threatening. These small things mattered to her. Her past had taught her to read such signs carefully. Inside, she felt a quiet conflict. Part of her wanted to believe this moment was different. Another part warned her not to be foolish. She stood between those two feelings, unsure which one would win. Trust felt dangerous, but fear was exhausting. Time moved forward again, no longer stretched thin by dread. The world around them continued, but for Ayana, everything felt changed. The fear that had controlled her at the start of the encounter was no longer overwhelming. It was still there, but it no longer filled all the space inside her. She did not know it yet, but this moment was testing more than just her courage. It was testing the story she had told herself for years. That power always meant pain, that kindness was rare and unreliable. Standing there, listening to him speak without anger, she felt that story begin to crack. The man, too, felt changed by the exchange. He had come into the moment expecting control. He found himself instead choosing understanding. He did not yet know what he would do next, but he knew one thing clearly. This encounter was no longer about rules or authority. It was about a person who had been pushed too far by life. As the conversation paused again, Ayana stood straighter than before. She was still afraid, but she was also curious. Curious about why this moment felt different. Curious about what would happen next. She did not yet realize that this pause, this quiet space filled with careful words and unexpected restraint, was leading towards something that would challenge both of them. But for the first time in a long while, fear was no longer the only thing guiding her heart. The silence that followed felt different from before. It was no longer heavy with fear, but filled with uncertainty and quiet thought. Ayana stood there, unsure of what to do with her hands, her eyes moving between the ground and the man in front of her. She felt exposed, as if her whole life had been laid out without her permission, yet something inside her told her not to run, not yet. The man took a slow breath. He realized that whatever he did next would matter more than he first believed. This was not just about a rule or a moment of control. It was about how one human treated another when fear was already doing enough damage on its own. He had seen many people over the years, but few had looked at him the way Ayana did. Her fear was honest. It was not an act. And that truth demanded a careful response. He took a small step back, giving her space. It was a simple movement, but it spoke loudly. Ayana noticed it immediately. Her shoulders loosened just a little. She had learned to notice every detail, every shift in body language. Space meant safety, even if only a small amount. "You don't need to be afraid," he said gently. His voice was steady, not raised, not sharp. I'm not here to hurt you." Still, something about the way he said it made her listen. He did not rush. He did not demand a response. He simply waited. Ayana swallowed and nodded, though she was not fully convinced. Trust did not come easily to her. It felt like a fragile thing, easily broken. She held it carefully, unsure whether to keep it or let it fall. The man asked her if she was tired. The question surprised her. No one had asked her that in a long time. She almost laughed at how obvious the answer was. Tired was too small a word for what she felt, but she nodded again. He noticed the way her eyes struggled to stay focused, how her body seemed to carry a weight that could not be seen. He realized that whatever pain she carried did not begin today. Today was just another chapter in a long, difficult story. Instead of continuing with questions or instructions, he did something unexpected. He sat down on a nearby step, lowering himself to her level. It was not a dramatic gesture, but it changed the balance between them. Authority felt less heavy when shared space replaced distance. Ayana blinked, confused. She did not understand why he would do that. Her instincts told her to remain cautious, but her curiosity grew stronger. She stayed where she was, watching him carefully. "I don't know what you've been through," he said after a moment, "but I can see that life hasn't been kind to you." Those words hit her quietly but deeply. They did not accuse. They did not demand. They simply acknowledged what she had lived with for years. Her throat tightened, and she had to look away to keep herself steady. She felt something she was not used to feeling in moments like this. Seen. Not judged, not dismissed, just seen. It made her uncomfortable in a way she could not explain. Pain was familiar, understanding was not. She told him she just wanted to go home. Her voice was calmer now, though still soft. Home was the only place where she felt even a small sense of peace. Even there, life was hard, but it was familiar. Familiar pain felt safer than unknown kindness. He nodded, as if her answer made perfect sense. He did not question it. He did not suggest she should want something else. He respected her wish without trying to change it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sounds of the world filled the space between them. Footsteps, distant voices, the wind moving lightly through the air. Life continued, but the moment remained important. The man thought about his own past, about the times he had followed routine without thinking about the people affected by it. He wondered how many moments like this he had missed because he did not stop to look closely. That thought stayed with him. Ayana felt her breathing steady. The tightness in her chest eased slightly. She was still alert, still ready to protect herself if needed, but she no longer felt like she was standing on the edge of something terrible. He stood up slowly, careful not to startle her. "You're free to go," he said. "There's no trouble here." The words felt unreal. She stared at him, unsure if she had heard correctly. Free to go. These were not words she expected to hear. She hesitated, waiting for the rest of the sentence, the condition, the hidden cost. None came. He nodded. Really, for a moment she did not move. Her body had learned to wait for the catch, for the moment when kindness turned into something else, but nothing changed. He simply stood there, giving her the choice. Slowly, Ayana took a step back, then another. Each step felt strange, like walking on new ground. She watched his face closely, ready to stop if anything shifted. It did not. As she turned to leave, something unexpected happened. He spoke again, but this time his words were not about rules or safety. He told her that she mattered, that her life had value, no matter what others had made her believe. He did not say it loudly. He did not say it for anyone else to hear. He said it for her. Those words followed her as she walked away. They echoed in her mind, gentle but persistent. She did not know whether to believe them yet, but she could not ignore them either. With each step, memories surfaced, moments when she had been treated as invisible, when her pain had been dismissed. Those memories felt slightly different now, as if something new had been added to them. A contrast, a reminder that not every encounter ended the same way. She reached the edge of the street and stopped for a moment. She looked back once. The man was still there, watching to make sure she left safely. There was no expectation in his expression. No demand for gratitude, just quiet concern. She nodded to him, a small gesture, but one filled with meaning. It was the only thank you she could offer without feeling overwhelmed. As she continued on her way, her steps grew steadier. The fear that had ruled her earlier was still present, but it no longer felt like the only truth. Something else had joined it, a small, fragile sense of possibility. She thought about how one moment could shift a lifetime of expectations, how one choice could challenge a story she had believed for years. She did not know what the future held, and she did not suddenly trust the world, but she felt lighter than before. Behind her, the man stood quietly, reflecting on what had just happened. He realized that strength did not always come from control. Sometimes it came from restraint, from listening, from choosing to see a person instead of a problem. That day did not erase Ayana's past, did not fix everything, but it gave her something she had almost forgotten how to carry. Not confidence, not certainty, but a small steady belief that kindness could exist where she least expected it. And as she walked toward home, with the sun slowly shifting in the sky, she held on to that belief carefully, like something precious she was not ready to let go of. Ayana walked for a long time before she realized how far she had gone. The road stretched ahead of her, familiar yet somehow new. Every step carried her farther away from the moment that had shaken her, but it also carried the echo of his words. They stayed with her, quiet but steady, like a gentle rhythm she could not ignore. At first she told herself not to think about it too much. Moments like that were rare, and rare things often disappeared as quickly as they came. Still, her mind kept returning to the same question. Why had he chosen kindness when he held power? That question followed her like a soft shadow. As she neared her village, the sounds of home greeted her. Children playing, elders talking, the familiar smell of cooking fires drifting through the air. Normally these things brought her comfort. Today, they felt different, not weaker, just changed. It was as if she was seeing her own world through a slightly clearer lens. Her mother was sitting outside when Ayana arrived. Her face lit up with relief at the sight of her daughter. Ayana smiled back, though her heart was still full and heavy at the same time. She helped her mother inside and began preparing food, moving through the routine she knew so well. Her hands worked automatically, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Her mother noticed the quietness in her. She asked if everything was all right. Ayana hesitated. She had never been good at explaining things that lived deep inside her. Usually she kept such moments to herself, afraid they would sound foolish or unbelievable. This time, she chose a different path. She spoke slowly, choosing her words with care. She did not describe everything, just enough to share how close she had felt to breaking, and how unexpected kindness had stopped her from falling. Her mother listened without interrupting, her eyes full of understanding. When Ayana finished, her mother reached for her hand. "Sometimes," she said gently, "life reminds us that not all doors lead to pain." Those words settled softly in Ayana's heart. She realized that healing did not always arrive in loud or dramatic ways. Sometimes it came quietly, through moments that felt small but carried great weight. That night, sleep did not come easily. Her body was tired, but her mind was awake. She replayed the encounter again and again, noticing new details each time. The space he had given her, the calm in his voice, the way he had listened. These memories did not hurt the way others did. They soothed something inside her instead. Over the next few days, Ayana noticed changes in herself. Small ones at first. She stood a little straighter when she walked through the village. She spoke a little more confidently when selling her handmade items. Fear still lived inside her, but it no longer controlled every step she took. People around her noticed too. An elder commented on the light in her eyes. A neighbor said she seemed stronger somehow. Ayana did not know how to explain it. Strength felt like the wrong word. It was more like balance, like she was no longer leaning entirely on fear to survive. She began helping others more openly, listening to their worries, sharing small moments of laughter. In doing so, she realized how many people around her carried hidden pain, just as she did. The understanding she had received made her more patient, more gentle. Far away, the man found himself thinking about her as well. The encounter stayed with him longer than he expected. He had seen fear many times, but this was different. It had been raw, honest, and deeply human. It forced him to reflect on his choices, not just in that moment, but in all the moments that came before. He started paying closer attention to the people he encountered each day. He listened more, he spoke less. He questioned habits he had once followed without thought. He realized that power could either build walls or open doors. The choice mattered more than he had ever admitted. Back in the village, Ayana faced a test she did not expect. One afternoon, a disagreement arose over resources. Voices were raised, and tension filled the air. Normally, Ayana would have stepped back, avoiding attention. This time, she stayed. Her heart raced, but she remembered how it felt when someone chose to see her instead of dismiss her. She spoke calmly, suggesting a solution that considered everyone's needs. At first, people were surprised to hear her voice so steady. Then they listened. The conflict eased, not because she was powerful, but because she was fair. As the group dispersed, Ayana felt a quiet pride settle within her. She had not raised her voice. She had not hidden either. She had simply been present. Later that evening, she sat alone, watching the sky change colors as the sun went down. She thought about how close she had been to believing that pain was the only language the world understood. One moment of compassion had challenged that belief. It had not erased her past, but it had given her a choice about how much power it held over her future. Healing, she realized, was not about forgetting. It was about learning to carry memories without letting them crush you. It was about recognizing that one kind act could exist alongside many painful ones, without canceling either out. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that encounter became a quiet anchor for her. Whenever fear tried to pull her back into old patterns, she reminded herself of the pause, the space, the calm voice that had changed everything. She reminded herself that she deserved safety, dignity, and respect. The village felt smaller now, not because it had changed, but because her view of the world had expanded. She began thinking about possibilities she had once dismissed. Teaching younger children, learning new skills, helping her community in ways she had never imagined before. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. Hardship was still a part of her life, but hardship no longer defined her completely. She had learned that even in the most unexpected moments, kindness could appear and leave a lasting mark. As the stars filled the sky, Ayanna felt a quiet gratitude, not just for what had happened, but for what it had awakened inside her. She was still healing, still cautious, but she was no longer shattered in the way she once believed. Somewhere beyond the hills, the man continued his own journey, shaped by the same moment in different ways. Neither of them knew if their paths would ever cross again. It did not matter. What mattered was that a single choice had sent ripples through two lives, reminding them both that compassion could change more than a single day. Time moved forward, as it always does, carrying both wounds and wisdom with it. Ayanna's life did not suddenly become easy, but it became clearer. Each day she woke with a stronger sense of herself. The fear that once ruled her thoughts still appeared from time to time, but it no longer sat at the center of her heart. Something else had taken that place. Quiet confidence, shaped by survival and understanding. She continued her daily work, helping her mother, supporting her community, and earning what she could. But the way she moved through the world had changed. She made eye contact more often. She spoke when something mattered to her. When doubt whispered that she was not enough, she answered it with patience instead of anger. She had learned that strength did not always need to be loud to be real. One afternoon, while teaching a small group of children how to make simple crafts, Ayanna noticed how closely they watched her. Their eyes were full of curiosity and trust. She realized then how important her presence was. She was not just surviving anymore, she was becoming an example. That thought filled her with responsibility, but also with purpose. She told the children stories passed down by elders, stories of resilience, fairness, and care for others. She made sure they knew that kindness was not weakness, and that dignity belonged to everyone. As she spoke, she felt something settle inside her, like a piece of her life finally finding its place. Her mother watched these moments with quiet pride. She saw her daughter standing taller, not because the world had softened, but because Ayanna had learned how to stand within it. Their evenings were filled with conversation now, sharing hopes instead of only worries. They still faced challenges, but they faced them together, with more trust in tomorrow. Far from the village, the man also continued to change. He carried the memory of Ayanna with him, not as a reminder of fear, but as a lesson in responsibility. He spoke differently now, choosing his words with care. He questioned his actions, especially in moments where he once would have relied only on authority. He began encouraging others around him to pause, to listen, to consider the human stories behind every situation. Some understood, others resisted. Change was never easy, especially when it asked people to look inward. Still, he remained steady, believing that one mindful choice could lead to another. Ayanna's path and his never crossed again, but their lives continued to reflect that single moment. It lived quietly in the way they treated others, in the way they treated themselves. Neither of them sought recognition for it. That moment had not been about being seen. It had been about seeing. Seasons passed, and the village changed as all places do. New faces arrived, others moved on. Through it all, Ayanna remained rooted. When disagreements arose, people began to seek her out. They trusted her fairness and calm presence. She never claimed to have all the answers, but she listened, and that was often enough. One evening, as she walked along the edge of the fields, the sky painted in soft colors, she stopped and took a deep breath. She thought about the woman she had been, the one who believed she was already broken beyond repair. She felt tenderness for that version of herself. She had survived in the only ways she knew how. She also thought about the woman she was becoming. Not fearless, not perfect, but honest and present. She no longer measured her worth by how much pain she could endure. She measured it by how much care she could offer without losing herself in the process. The memory of her plea still lived in her, but it no longer filled her with shame. It reminded her of how far she had come. It reminded her that asking for mercy had not been weakness. It had been the first step toward reclaiming her voice. As night settled in, the village lights flickered on one by one. Ayana returned home, greeted by familiar warmth. She helped prepare the evening meal, sharing laughter and stories. Life felt ordinary, and that ordinariness felt like a gift. Somewhere beyond the hills, the man paused during his own evening. He looked out at the fading light and reflected on the paths people walk without ever knowing how closely they intersect. He understood now that moments of compassion often leave marks that cannot be measured or traced, but they last. Both lives moved forward, shaped by choices made in a moment of uncertainty. The world around them remained imperfect, sometimes harsh, sometimes unfair. But within that world, they had learned something important. Change did not always arrive through force or control. Sometimes it arrived through restraint, listening, and respect. Ayana lay down to rest that night with a steady heart. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but she felt ready to meet them, not because she believed the world would be gentle, but because she believed she could face it with dignity. Her story did not end with rescue or reward. It ended with understanding, with growth, with the quiet strength of someone who had learned that being shattered did not mean being finished. And in that truth, her life continued, not defined by fear, but guided by the knowledge that even the smallest act of kindness can change the direction of a soul. And sometimes, that is enough to change everything.